You can proceed. Record has been started.
Okay, thank you. Good evening once again, and wishing you a very happy 2026. So I think we are just continuing with what we have been doing so far about RMAN. I think today just sort of touching up a bit on the recovery fundamentals. So let me just quickly share my screen. Just a second. Right. So again, just like previously or previous set of slides, we may not have much of slides here, but I will just run through some hands-on sessions for you to understand the concepts right. And again, mind you, RMAN is a huge topic, and be it backups, be it recoveries, so it has quite a lot of content. So we won't be able to just uh, share everything within these two within this session, of course, the recovery part of it. But just to give you a kind of a understanding about how we can make use of RMAN for recovery scenarios. Okay. So I'm not going to touch upon the backups once again, because we already have discussed. We have taken, I think, 2 sessions in order to explain you about backup concepts. So today we are going to touch upon the recovery fundamentals. Okay, so about some highlights. So let me just run through some quick theoretical stuff here before getting into hands-on. So we are talking about recoveries. Now, we discussed about how we can invoke RMAN to take backups, how we can invoke certain levels or different levels of backups. And this RMAN is a media recovery solution. So whenever something goes wrong with the database in terms of file corruption, in terms of logical corruption, we can make use of RMAN to recover those. Right? So any production database running on archive log mode, we will be able to use RMAN in order to perform point-in-time recoveries. What I meant by point-in-time recoveries is the possibility of recovering your database up to certain point in time. So we can also do complete recoveries as well. So when you do complete recoveries, you have to make sure certain set of files are available as well. Before talking in depth about those, let's try to understand these highlights. So first of all, RMAN basically, whenever you want to do a restoration, RMAN, we would have already taken many backups before, right? So based on the request that you are making, RMAN will try to restore the most recent backup so that the recovery time would be less. Now, again, an important point here, restoration and recoveries. Restoration is a process of actually restoring the files, right, from the backups that you have already taken. Now, recovering is basically the process of taking that database or data file or table space forward so that it will recover up to the point that you want. As an example, maybe you have taken a backup at 8 p.m., but now the database had got moved, let's say now it is 9:30 p.m. So if you have just restored the backup, that backup will only contain data as of 8 p.m. But since we need the additional data as well, we should be able to apply the changes through archive logs and the redo logs that we have. Then that process of applying the changes on top of the backup that you have already restored is what you call recovery. Okay, so when you are talking about the restoration will always have will basically go with the most recent backup that you have taken, unless otherwise you have gone with a specific, a special kind of syntax is used in order to do a special type of restorations. Right? So by default, it will always look for the most recent backup. And the important other thing is that if you are specifying a particular time of recovery, Meaning, let's say I don't want all my data to be applied on my backup, but I should be able to push my database up till a certain point in time, because beyond that point, I have done some mistakes. So I don't want those to be applied once again to my database. In that case, uh, always the database backup that is going to be restored will be just prior to the recovery process, right? RMAN will not restore a backup that is after a point that you want to have your database recovered. Meaning, it will not restore something in front of the time and then come back. So a recovery process will always be a backup before the point of time of recovery that you want, and then keep applying the changes, take the database forward up to the point that you want to do the recovery. Okay, so that's how it happens. So that's the first point, and then also it basically will the restoration, if you are using a particular restoration, like for example the channel type, there are two types that we had learned. We can use the disk type, we can also use the SBT or the tape type. So if you are using a disk type, it will always use the disk type to do the restoration, and if you're using tape, then it will use a tape channel type to do the restoration. So it will not do a mix of both. So that is what it means here. And then it can also do a restore failover, meaning the most recent backup, right? When that you really want to restore, it will try to restore, but there could be some inconsistencies such as corruptions or inaccessibility where the backups are not really available. So in such case, it can always fall back to a previous backup, right? So it will keep on going back to a previous backups as long as they are being cataloged. So if you can recall cataloging, our default catalog is your control file. So control file will have those entries of the history of backups that you have already taken. So, or you can always go for a catalog database as well. So either way, if you have those histories available, RMAN can fall back to previous backups to see whether there is a good backup to be restored, right? And then the next one is the skipping of backups by default. So if a file had been already restored, or if the file is already there, as long as it is intact, meaning the file as is, maybe the name of the file that is being looked for, meaning your data file locations, name of the data files are all stored in your control file. So when you initiate a restoration, if the file name matches to the file that you really have in your control file, I mean, as an entry, right? And also if the file header has the content which RMAN is looking for, meaning it is not corrupted, or if it is uh, inaccessible, or there's something wrong with the header of the file, then if those things are not there really, I mean, if the file is already there as the same name as that you have in your control file, as well as a situation where your file headers are intact, then RMAN can skip those files. So you would have sometimes seen when you reattempt a restoration process, right? You might have come across situations where RMAN is indicating that it is skipping some of these files at the time of restoration, while because those are already restored. So the message will come saying that these files are already restored, so that RMAN is skipping those files, right? So those are situations where the files are properly matched with what is expected. And then we also have something called as a data recovery advisor. We will not talk too much about this one here, because as from 19C onwards, this option of data recovery advisor, or DRA in short, is being deprecated, right? So deprecated means it is not de-supported, it is still available even if you go to higher versions, but probably in the future, it might get taken off also as a feature for some reason, because I think mainly a data recovery advisor is a tool that is supported only for single instance databases. So if you are running on a rack environment or cluster environment, this feature is not available. So that could be the reason why Oracle is taking off that feature, probably in the upcoming releases. And also, files, when you are restoring your files, you can restore files to the default location, which can be seen by the control file, which is already there in the control file, because all the entries of these files are listed in the control file. So if you have lost a file and you're restoring that, always control file knows where this file should be restored to, right? So the destination is known. But in the event if the location that you are looking for is not really available, you want to, or maybe there is a special requirement of restoring this file to a different location. Yes, we can do that as well by updating the control file or saying the control file that my new location is going to be this other location, right? So that's an option that we can use as well. And then about the restoration and recovery commands, these are just examples. Quite a lot of syntaxes are there. But then I will just run through a few of them. So we can use REST to preview. I will do an example on that. And then obviously the normal restore commands, you can restore your data files, you can restore table spaces, pluggable databases, you can restore your root container, you can, you can restore multiple pluggable databases. So all these options are available. So when you're restoring, in the backup command also, we use this check logical to verify whether there are any logical corruptions incorporated, because by default, uh, logical corruptions are not checked at the time of a backup or even at a restoration time, right? So then we also can make use of restoring to a certain restore point. We'll see whether we can take one example on that as well. And then, okay, so let me just verify a restore point. So restore point is a point in time label, right? So when you create a restore point, it basically captures the timestamp at which the restore point was created. So the advantage here is that you can use these restore points for certain other activities as well. At the same time, when you use a restore point against RMAN, you can do a recovery based on the restore point. Right, so I can say always. So maybe I can, let's say I have started a particular operation in my database at a certain point in time. So before that, I have taken a restore point. So my process is ongoing, and maybe halfway something goes wrong. So now I want my database to be recovered up to that point where I started the process. Right. So that started the process, or like that location would be my restore point, because if I have already created restore point, I know, or RMAN or the database knows what exactly that point is. So you can even do a restoration and a recovery on that, or onto that particular location, or to that point in time as well. So generally speaking, when you're doing an incomplete recovery, you can do an incomplete recovery based on a system change number. So that's basically the system or database counter. I'll show you the counters as well, and then that will just progress per second. So if you really know to which particular SCN that you want to do a recovery of your database, that we can do. But most commonly we will rely on the time. So you can specify a time and do a recovery up to a certain point in time. And also we can do recoveries up to log sequence numbers as well. So log sequence numbers are basically the sequence numbers assigned to the redo logs. So each redo log will carry changes, right? Redo log files will capture the changes that are occurring from a certain SCN to another SCN. That is, the lowest SCN and the highest SCN can be seen from the redo logs as well. So based on that, we can do a recovery specifying up to a certain sequence number, log sequence number that we want to do a recovery. Okay. So another important thing to highlight here is that if you specify SCN to do a recovery, right? So it will be like, say, example, I have a SCN, let's say 100. So 100 basically maps to, let's say, 6:30 p.m. 00, right? And so no, exactly 6:30 seconds 0. So, but then if I do a recovery up to this SCN of 100, the changes will not include as of 6:30 p.m. Right? It will be as of 6:29, 59 second, right? Something like that. So the last second content will not be there. So because we are giving the higher up to which SCN that you want to do, so that particular SCN's uh, you know bound timestamp is not going to be considered at the time of a recovery. So same thing goes to time as well. Let's say I want to do a recovery at of my database to the timestamp of 6:30 p.m. So the recovery will happen 6:20 up to in the sense including changes up to 6:29.59. So last second change may not come because we have given an upper limit. So that upper limit value is not going to be included in the recovery process. Same thing goes to sequence. If I say go up to sequence number 10, changes will apply, including sequence number 9. So sequence number 10 changes will not come into the recovery process. That's an important point to highlight. And then we can also do recoveries saying no redo, meaning you try to recover your database with the backups that you have, only the backups that you have. It could be full backups, it could be the incremental backups that we discussed about, but then you don't do the next changes that had been recorded in your redo log files or your archive log files. You don't go there. Right? So that is what you call recover no redo. And then again, you can also go with until available redo, right? So that means it will keep on applying changes as much as it can, apply. Right? So if your database has created, let's say, 100 archive logs, and then your current redo log file content as well, so it will keep on applying these changes until all the archive logs, the redo log files changes have been applied to the database. Right? So this will most likely be doing a full database recovery unless otherwise we have lost some archive files or the redo log files on the way, right? So it's more or less a full recovery, but then another important point there would be recover database until available redos option is only available with recover database, right? But other options you can go with a data file, you can go with table spaces and so on, right? Or pluggable databases and so on, right? So these are some of the things that I just wanted to highlight before we get into our hands-on stuff. So let me just stop my screen here or screen sharing and then quickly take you to a window. Okay. So hope this is visible. I also have another window next to me, but I don't think you can see that where I'm going to simulate some failures. Okay. So this is my environment. Okay. In the first place, you can see here. So you can see the current SCN, right? So if you want to do a certain, recovery of a database up to certain SCN, you can do that as well. But this will get increased by the second. So each second, this will get increased. So, I mean, sometimes it might be a bit tough for you to mention a particular SCN to do a recovery up to which point you want to do a recovery. But anyway, this is an option that you have, right? So if I do something like this, create a res uh, so if we create a restore point, what happens is that we will rest. So you can also see, let me just check the name of the restore point, not take all the columns there. And you can see the SCN as well. So if you query this view, you now know, right? So this restore point of RP1, which I have named, has the timestamp or the SCN 80 something, right? So it's almost the same, but I told you that it gets increased by the second. So if I want to do a recovery rather than just specifying the SCN, I can now even specify the restore point as well. But if I say that it's give the restore point, it will be either restored or recovered, right? Up to this point that you mentioned. Okay. There's a difference between a restore point based recovery and those normal recoveries or point-in-time recoveries I mentioned, such as time-based recovery, SCN-based recovery, or sequence-based recovery. So the main difference is that when you do a restore point-based recovery, it will include the change that had happened at this particular SCN as well. I told you, if you do SCN-based recovery, let's say if you do an incomplete recovery specifying SCN instead of using the restore point name, right? If you do a recovery, any change that had happened exactly at this point, this SCN will not be included in your recovery. It will be always one less than this. That is if you explicitly use an incomplete recovery using SCN. But if you use RP1 or restore point name, then this whatever the change that had occurred at exactly at this SCN number also will be included as part of the recovery. Right? So hope that part is clear to you. So this is my environment. Show PDBs will tell us that we have two pluggable databases running in this environment. And PDB1 is one, PDB2 is second one. Okay, so let's try. I will just try to demonstrate this, what do you call, the scenario of using the recovery advisor. So let me first do alter session set container equals PDB1. Create table space. Create table space. Let's give TS1 header file size 5M. Right. So I have a table space created here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just exit from here to RMAN. And we'll try to quickly back up this table space, okay? Because it was not there in the backup, because I just created this table space. So backup table space, PDB1 colon. I'm sorry, there's a bit of noise out there. Backup table space PDB1 colon. My table space name is TS1. Let me just put it in capitals. Okay, so I'll just take a backup of that table space. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how we can do a complete recovery, right? So when I say complete recovery, I'm not going to lose out any data, right? But I'm going to do a full recovery there. So let's just wait until this finishes. Okay. So now my table space TS1 of PDB1 has been backed up. So what I'm going to do now is we'll add some data to this as well, okay? So let's just quickly take out of it, come out of it. sysdba alter system session set container equals PDB1. Just quickly grant alter user Scott quota unlimited on my table space TS1. Okay, so create table, right? Create table test. Say Scott dot test. select asterisk from scott.emp. Okay, so I believe I have a EMP. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that's all right. I created one, but we don't know where it has gone. So alter table scott.test. I will move this, move table space to TS1. Okay, so select table space name from VBA tables where table underscore name equals TS1, right? Oops, sorry, my table name is wrong. Table name is test. So let me just run this once again. EST. Okay. You can see that currently it has it is there in test table space, right? So if I do select now, select asterisk from Scott dot test. I know, sorry, oops, there no data is. Let me just go do a quick insert. Describe Scott dot test. Insert into Scott dot test values. Let me just be quick on this. 1111 as employee number, name. Put my name here, and then job as job is okay. Analyst. Okay, and then manager number is also some manager number. So hire date, just put sys date to indicate today, and salary Q10, commission also 10, and department number also 10. I'll just give some values here. Oh, sorry. So some problem with the validation here. I hope we run it properly. Okay, so I'll just have only one and committed as well. Select Scott for test. So I see my record here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, so the backup that I've taken doesn't have these content, right? So I'm going to simulate a failure of this table space. RMAN target flash. Takes a while to connect as well because my machine is slow. So report scheme. So if I do a report schema, I could see the table space TS1 is part of PDB1, and you can see the table space path as well, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do alter pluggable database, PDB1, close immediate. So I'm going to just close this so that I'll be able to remove this file to simulate a failure. Okay. So as I told you earlier, I have another session running on ASM. I'm going to just delete this file from ASM, and so you won't be able to see that because I'm just using the second screen here. So I will just do RM on this file. Okay. Same file. I'm going to RM from my other session. So getting deleted at the moment and deleted. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and open this PDB again, where you'll be able to expect, we're expecting an error here. And it, as expected, it says that our data file 626 is missing. So 26 is exactly this file. right? So how are we going to recover this? Now with RMAN, this concept of ADR, right, which is the um, a data recovery advice, which I told you that is getting deprecated from 19C onwards. I'm going to make use of some commands against the RMAN to identify this problem. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say list failure. So when I do a list failure, so these are commands attached to RMAN, which will now give us some indication of the problem that we are seeing. So it could be one problem, it could be many problems also, right? So here currently it says that there is one or more non-system data files are missing, right? So let's get more clarity on what we are seeing by probably typing advice failure. Okay. So when you do advice failure, now it will tell me that it will give us some indications of the file that had been failed, and it will also tell us the availability of backups, right? Okay. You can see that the file, it also gives us some indications as well. It says that if it had been unintentionally removed, you can just restore it as well. So that they have also created a restore and a recovery script, right? If the file is missing, obviously you have to restore it, and then you have to do a recovery in order to bring it to the latest status, right? Because the backup itself is not going to help us in retrieving these records that we have already stored in the table, right? Because the table creation and also the data insert was done after the backup, right? So the backup doesn't have that. You have to apply the changes incrementally and then get the values, shown. So let me just do this now. It says that, this is the advice that it has given us. No manual actions are available, but it says this is in case if you already have have this file stored somewhere else and you want to take it back, you can do that through this as well. Or here you have the a script available so that you can make use of the script in order to get the work done automatically, right? So I'm going to rely on the automatic script that it has created, which I can call using so I run this command called repair failure. It shows me what exactly it is going to do, right? So the strategies repair includes complete media recovery with no data loss. Right? So likewise, so it asks us whether we want to proceed. So we just say yes to this. So you can see that currently it is being restored, or the file is going to be restored, the data file number 26. And you can see that it starts the media recovery as well to apply the newest changes on top of the database, on top of the restoration that we did. And now it has been completed. All right. So let me just quickly go back to my session now. Okay, so let's do show PDBs first. Right, so currently PDB1 is mounted because I could not open the database. Oh. So I've already recovered my table space there. So let's see whether we have the content also to see whether we have all the data in that. So we managed to open the database because the recovery had happened now through the previous attempt. And now let's change orchestration set container equals PDB1. Okay, so let's now try to query the table. Select from Scott.test, right? You can see that the record has come now. So thanks to the full recovery, which RMAN performed automatically. So this is through what you call through ADR. So ADR is this is the feature that I was talking about that is getting probably obsoleted or kind of obsoleted. Still available, but it's been deprecated since 19C. All right. So hope this makes sense. So this is how we do a complete recovery. Okay. So on the same lines, I'll make use of the same backup. Okay. And this time, let me just shut down, because currently on name. Currently, I'm on PDB1, so I can do a shutdown immediate. Okay. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a manual option here. Again, I'm going to delete the same file. So let me verify the file. RMAN target hash. Schema. So let's check the exact file name now. Okay, so TS1, this is the file name. I'm going to delete the file again from the backend because I managed to shut down the database first. So let's do a RM, and I'm going to delete that file. 26, right? Okay. Another thing that I want you to understand here is that the file has actually got stored in plus data, right? So plus data is the path where you already have the data file, and this is a place which control file knows as well. Okay, so control file knows that it is here because control file has an entry. So control file knows where all these files are. So these values are actually being retrieved from the control file, right? Okay, so file has been deleted. So I won't be able to bring my this pluggable database up because there's a file missing. Let me try again, alter pluggable database, alter pluggable database, db1 open. So this will again give us the same error indicating that this file is missing, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use, I told you that there's a possibility that you can store your file instead of going into the default location, which the control file knows, to a different location that we want. Okay. So let's try this run block here where we can type many commands. And here I will type set new name. Okay, set new name for data file. Just give the, oops, sorry, it's not this one. I'm sorry, it's this one. It's this one, right? So my file number is 26. I can give the name of the file as well. Right. So I want this file to be now restored to record. So I have another disk group called record. So this is a place where I want my data file to go now. Okay. Restore, check. So I'm just adding some additional syntaxes also that we came across today as well. Restore, check logical, data file, 26, right? So that's a file I want to restore, right? So just a restore will not help us because the restore, the backup that we took has no recent data, so, right? So therefore, we definitely have to do a recovery in order to get our full content, meaning in order to do a complete recovery. So therefore, I will just run recover data file as well. So recover data file 26. Okay, so let's try to close this run block where I have, you can see now there are 3 commands that I have added. So all these 3 commands, instead of running individually, I want to run it as a block, and hence I have initiated a run block. Okay. All right. So let's initiate this now. Oops. Why is that? Okay, so we, because it says restore complete, right? Oh, okay. So I made a mistake here. I'll show you what it is. Okay. Now what happened was really, okay, so it managed to, restore this file. Okay, you can see that the piece handle goes into reco, right? And this path, and you can see that file name is also given here, right? But unfortunately, when the recovery starts or recovery started, right? Right. Still, the control file is not aware of the new location because I told you the path in which the data file should go to is recorded in the control file, right? So this initial command of set new name is there to indicate where the new file or where the file should go to, right? So this is the restoration, and thereafter here there is no indication of update in the control file to say that I have my file in a new location. All right. So the file will get restored, but then at the time of the recovery, control file will search for the old file. So good that we came across this error also. So now we know that because now here it says that it cannot find the file, right? Can see, cannot identify file. But it got restored as well because restore complete. Right? So if you go into this location of SM, you will still find this file available. But unfortunately, it cannot be understood by the database because the control file still has the entry of the previous file location. So what I want to do is I will just run this once more, right, with same commands. Okay. So once the I have to do this one later on. Let me just recall it. Because once the restoration is completed, right, I need to ensure that my control file is updated with the new location name. Okay, so I have to say switch data file 26. So this command was missing in my previous command, previous run block. Okay, let's do the recovery now, and hopefully you should be able to have the recovery done properly. Okay, so let's run this once again. So now you can see that there's a new message coming up here indicating switch data file switch to data file copy, right? So, and the recovery has been completed as well. So let's try to do alter pluggable database PDB1 open. Right, so it got processed. Let's go to SQL Plus, show PDBs, alter session, set container equals, set it to PDB1, select asterisk from Scott.test, right? You can see the records are back. So these two demonstrations which I just did were actually part of a full recovery process, and we did not lose any data. Okay. So as I was saying before, sometimes we might need to recover our database to a certain point in time, right, where we can use SCN-based recovery, time-based recovery, or log sequence-based recovery. So again, with the limited time that we have, we won't be able to demonstrate everything, right? But what I thought was to share with you a nice scenario where we could try and uh, do a recovery of a particular table, right? But this time we will try to make use of the restore point, which I also talked about earlier. Okay, so let's try to do this first. So currently we are on PDB1. I'm going to create a restore point. So before that, let's try to exit from here. I will use the other database for this. PDB is here. So my PDB2 is also up and running. Okay. Right. So let's switch to session set container equals PDB2. So let's do select asterisk from Scott.dpt. Okay, so I have Scott.dpt table here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this table, create table, Scott.dpt2 as select asterisk from Scott.dpt. Select asterisk from Scott.dpt2. So I have the records as I saw in the department table as well. Okay. At this particular point in time, I'm going to create a restore point. Create restore point RP2. Okay. So what I do now is let's try to do certain activities. Let's just quickly do an insert. Okay, so maybe with the interest of time, without doing much, let me just do a quick truncate here. Truncate table. Or maybe just delete some records, probably. Delete from Scott.dpt2. Delete from Scott.dp2, where dpt number in 10 and 20. The two rows deleted. Let's do a commit as well and do a select. Select from Scott.dpt2, right? So currently we have lost two records here. Maybe it's a mistake that you have done, or maybe it had been probably because of the module that you have run. And now you want your status to be as of the time when we created the restore point, because as of this time, right? As of this time, we had all the records intact, right? So let's try to see how we can achieve this. So now we are not going to do a full recovery, because if you do a full recovery, again, the two records will be lost, but we have to come halfway, right? But we are not reverting all the changes of the database, not even the table space. We are just reverting the changes of the table, right? So this was a table recovery was recently introduced, I think in 12 plus. All right, this was introduced. So let's try to make use of that feature to recover table to a certain point in time. right? So let's do RMAN target. Okay, so let's try now. Recover table. You want to recover Scott's DPT2 table, right? Of pluggable database. So our pluggable database is PDB1, if I'm not mistaken, because we changed the PDB2, right? PDB create tester point RPT2 is create table. Okay, I'm just checking the location. So it looks like I'm still in PDB2, right? Create table. Okay, that's all right. So we'll change our goal database PDB2, right? And oops. Oh, I think there's a small mistake here. Instead of dot, put a command. Right? And until this will be until restore point RP2, right? So just put that one here as well. Okay. And then I also mentioned a temporary location. And why I'm using this temporary location is to build the process. So I will explain how this happens really, because this will take a bit of time. Because of the slowness of my environment also, it might take a lot of time to complete. But then I will explain you since we have time there. Okay, so I will just run the command first up. Auxiliary destination, I put U01 and software. This is a mount point that I really have in my environment to do to store some files. Okay. So recover table Scott dot dpt2, right? And I might also do something else here. Remap Scott dot dpt2 Scott dot dpt, say copy. So why I'm doing this, I want my table to be remapped. And why do I have to remap? If I don't put this line number 4, what would happen is when the recovery happens, it will error out indicating that the table already exists. Right. So that is why I'm going to, I mean, of course, I would have started this process by dropping the table itself, right? DPT2 table. Right? Instead of doing that, I want my table to be renamed. I mean, my new table, recovering table, to be renamed as DPT copy. So that's why I'm just using that term there. So let's try to run this command and see whether, oops, there's a problem. Yeah, I think the missing syntax here is this. Okay. There's a small problem here. What I want to remap is a table. So remap table, Scott.dpt to be mapped as dpt copy. Okay, looks okay for me. So let's run this. Okay, so let's see whether it is proceeding. Now, what it actually does is, right, it will basically try to set this environment in a temporary location, right? So the first set of lines that you're seeing here is to create a dummy database, right? So this dummy database will not have all the backups that we have, but it will use certain table spaces restored on this location that I have specified under auxiliary, right? So it will basically create a temporary database. So in this temporary database, it will try to restore the database and recover the table that we want up to the point in time. Okay. So this whole operation, the first phase of the operation is to set up a temporary database. What would be the location of that? So that is the location that I have given under the auxiliary parameter, right? So in this auxiliary location, it will create a temporary instance and a temporary database and try to restore the database and will try to recover the table up to the point we want. Okay. So once the recovery has been completed, RMAN, or basically from this process, it will create or it will take a dump of the table, right? It will create a dump of the table. So dump is a logical dump. If you have seen, if you have probably might have heard of the export utility, it will export the table from that temporary location, right? So once the export has been completed, right? So that exported file will be re-imported to our original database, to our original pluggable database, right? So that is where, in case if the table exists already, it might error out indicating that the table is already there. So that's why I did a remap so that at the time of import, right, at the time of import, Oracle will import it to a different, import the content under a different table name, right? So this whole process is automated and there is no manual intervention required, but you need to know what exactly you want to do, right? So once specifying the location, the auxiliary location, provided that you have sufficient space there, you should be able to recover this. Now, there are few things that needs to be noted here. First thing, I used a restore point. Even though I use a restore point, there's just a label there. Behind the scene, it has a mapped SCN, right? So the recovery will happen to a particular SCN, right? So it's an incomplete recovery we perform because we are not going to recover everything. Because if you try to recover everything, we will again lose the table, entire table, because if you do a complete recovery, because last few transactions we did, we deleted the record, right? So we don't want that to happen. So we want to take that table behind that particular point. So that is why we are doing an incomplete recovery, right? So although we are using a restore point, the keyword restore point there, indirectly what we are attempting is a SCN-based recovery, right? So you can view your documentation, you will get to know how we can perform the same thing using a time-based recovery as well. So that's another choice that you have, or log sequence based recovery as well. Okay, so that's how it is, and so this will take a bit of time to. As of now, what it is doing is it is restoring the backups to this temporary location that I have specified under the auxiliary parameter, and there it will rebuild the database, and thereafter it will start exporting the content after recovering the table. Okay, so recovered content should have all the 4 or 5 records that we had in the DPT copy or DPT2 table. Okay, right. So I'll pause for a moment. Pause in the sense we can all watch how this progresses. But then until such time, if you have any questions with regards to whatever we have covered today, I think stage is yours. You can just ask questions until this whole process is over. Kavindu, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, Mr. Gayanta. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I have a small question, but uh, so in a like a data file deletion scenario, you
Mhm,
think like in the production environment, the data file was accidentally deleted
mhm,
and still exists in the DR database.
mhm.
So what is the best course of action to do a full switch over to the DR site or try to recover the data file?
Okay, so in the event if you have okay, so let me just add a few things there as well. In case if you are using RMAN, sorry, in case you're using ASM as the location of your database or data files, right? As far as the, let's say if you're dealing with a pluggable database and this pluggable database is active, it is open, then ASM will not allow you to delete those files.
Hello, Mr. Gayanta. Hello, Mr. Gayanta.
Kavidu, can you hear me?
Yeah, Mr. Yes.
So sorry, I actually lost the connection. So I
No,
don't know whether
no.
you can still see my screen right now.
Yeah, we can see your screen. It's connected to
Okay.
the auxiliary database. Yeah.
All right, fine. So I was saying that in case if you are using ASM and your database is open, ASM will not allow you to delete those files. That's the first
Understood.
thing,
Yeah.
right? But a corruption would always occur. So if there is a corruption, I did not mention it here, but corruption, if the corruption had occurred on a certain set of blocks, which can be easily seen from your alert file as well, or we can query $block corruption also, right? And in that case, you can simply do a block media recover, right? Mentioning only the blocks, right? So the blocks can be read from a physical, I mean, from backup, and only those blocks that are affected can be recovered from RMAN. Okay, so that
Okay.
is one option that you have rather than switching over to the standby database, simply because switching to a standby database will also involve switching of your application as well to the other
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
most likely, right? So that will take a bit more time.
Yeah.
So that is one thing to note. Other than that, yes. So that is one option, right? So the second option is there is always a possibility of recovering your primary file using the file that you already have in the standby database as well. So you can recover your data file through a service. We call it a service. So you can connect to the standby service and recover your production data file.
I see.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
is another option that you have. So yeah, so if these things are not possible and you are not just impacted by a single data file failure, and if you are seeing quite a lot of files have been failed, and it might take a lot of time to restore these files. Now, if the files are
Yeah.
big, the time it takes to restore also might be big as well, right? So that could be
Understand.
a situation where you might think of failing over to the standby database.
Understand. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gayanta.
Yeah,
That's
no worries. So in this question, which Kavind asked, of course, Kavindu asked, it had this block media recovery, which I just mentioned. So BMR or block media recovery is also a service which is provided by RMAN during the recovery. We'll be able to do a block level recovery also, rather than restoring the whole database or data files of a particular table space. Can just mention the corrupted files or corrupted blocks rather. So corrupted blocks can be easily viewed through alert file as well, because the alert file will report the corrupted blocks. And also we can query through $V block, block corruptions. So through that view also you'd be able to see that. And yes, if there is a failure, now he also mentioned about setting up having a standby database using data guard. So data guard has two flavors: the conventional data guard as well as the active data guard. So in the event if the customer has purchased the active data guard option, then the recovery, if there are, let's say, if 5 blocks were corrupted on the primary side, so the next moment, what do you call, active data guard has that capability of automatically recovering the primary database through good blocks that you have in the standby database. So that recovery is automatic. So although you may initially get to know this error of having some corruptions, the next time when you query the table, you will not see these corruptions because that had been fixed automatically through standby database blocks that you have in the standby database. So that's another feature which it has if you have active data guard. So, but active data guard is not a free option; it's a paid option. But then that's another facility which it has given in terms of recoveries. And when you want to do a recovery, as I mentioned before, you can connect to primary database as a service or standby database as a service. Now, when I say as a service, you can connect through RMAN to, I mean, your target database will be the database that you will have the recovery done, but you'll be connecting to your auxiliary location, and that auxiliary location will be the primary database or the other database, and you connect through a connect string, right? And then you'd be able to recover your files through either production database service name or standby database service name. So we have done certain such recoveries as well, which are quite fast. But then, of course, it is a valid question which Kavindu asked: in the event if you have lost a lot of data files, and if you know with your experience that it might take quite a lot of time, which cannot be tolerated, of course, that could be a situation where you have to fail over to your standby database and bring it up and the applications connecting to that database. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Khan.
Yeah. So, okay. So, as of now, you can see that the database is, or the temporary database has been already completed. I mean, recovery has been completed. Now it is doing some exports. So it is exporting the data of DPT2 table, right? And that is after recovery. Now, currently, our main database, which is prod PDB2 rather, has not been impacted by any of these activities. Currently, RMAN is working on the temporary database. Okay, so from the temporary database, this location, hope you can remember the U01 software which I have given, that basically holds, that basically has, this directory will be used, and it will be created as a logical directory as well, mapped to this physical path. And the dump that it takes by exporting the records of the table will go into this location. So you'll later see the dump file as well. So that dump file will carry the 4 or 5 or I don't know that number of records which had already in the DPT2 table. Okay. So once the export has been completed, then of course that will be imported back to our PDB2 database, and it will be imported into a new table called, if I'm not mistaken, it's DPT copy table. Because we didn't want to drop the original table of DPT2. So we'll have that one also as is. And this one will be imported into a new table. So if you really don't want the old table before this activity also, you can drop that table. Even now you can drop it because the import has not yet been started. Okay. On the other hand, this facility of recovering, here we are doing a point-in-time recovery of a table. So this facility of recovering a table point-in-time recovery will also allow you to only create the dump file. I mean, instead of doing the import, if your requirement is just to have the content with you in the form of a dump file. So you can just retain the dump file without importing also. So we can ask RMAN not to do the import, but just to take the dump file and keep. All right, so it's pretty slow here in this environment. I think I'm running out of disk space also, and that would be one of the other reasons why it is to take a lot of time. So there are other commands that I did not demonstrate, like restore preview. Restore preview is also a good thing to do. If you have backups, it will tell you based on the backups that you have up to what point of SCN the restoration will take place. And in order to take off the fuzziness, right, of the database, meaning in order to make it consistent, it will also say up to this particular point of SCN, you have to do the recovery. Okay, so that all indication will be given through restore preview command as well. And okay, so coming back to this process, you can see there is a process that had got started. So it's there's a name that it has been given to the export operation. So I was talking about restore preview. So restore preview, now again, the importance of understanding what is fuzziness. Now, if you have taken a backup, if you have started a backup when the database is up and running, let's say your table space A has been taken, sorry, the backup of table space A had been taken at 8 o'clock, whereas backup of table space B had been taken 1 hour later. So if you take all these backup pieces together, you will not have a database backup ready as of a given timestamp. Each of these files had been taken at different timestamps. And so therefore, if you just restore them, you cannot make a consistent database, right? So that is why we need to apply some changes and bring all these files to a certain single point in time. So that is what I mean. Fuzziness means if you just restore and if you try to open the database, it will fail because of the fuzziness. Right? So you need to make them consistent by applying changes coming through archive log files and maybe the redo log files to make them consistent to a certain point in time. So that is where the recovery is also required. So once that has been done, then you'll be able to open your database without a problem, right? So that's an important point. So that is how you get rid of the fuzziness. So that is what the restore preview would say. In order to get rid of the fuzziness, up to a certain SCN, you need to do a recovery. All right. Okay, so still the process is ongoing. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes. So we are just exporting a few records of a table. So even then, this is a bit slow. So we are basically concluding our sections on RMAN backup and recovery fundamentals. So, well, maybe this is a little bit more than fundamentals, but wanted to cover content as much as possible. So that's why I took this example also, how we can do a table point in time recovery. But when I say table point in time recovery, it is not just that which is possible through RMAN. You can do point in time recovery of your root. I mean, not your root, basically your database, your pluggable database, and also the table, table space that we are dealing with, table spaces as well as the table that we are dealing with right now. Okay. So when you perform these operations, sometimes you will come across certain challenges. Like there are some limitations that you would come across. So you have to be aware of these limitations prior to attempting these activities. So especially like this user software location, it should have sufficient space to store the main files of your pluggable database, right? And it will also have some root data files restored as well, like the system sysocks, all those system related table spaces. Okay, so that will also take place. So you need to have enough space there. And on the other hand, the location to which the import will take place later on should be open. Right? If the table space has gone offline, or if the database is not up, then of course you cannot import. So it will error out, indicating that it cannot be performed. So those are the other things that you have to consider. So for some odd reason, the export takes time in my machine. So hopefully the import will be done faster. So feel free to ask any question with regards to whatever we have completed, whatever we have done so far throughout this, program. Okay, so we don't really have a control over this operation as well. So unfortunately, we might have to wait and see how this goes.
Gan, if it is take time, we can conclude the session and yeah, because I think I don't know whether it is up to you, Gan.
Yeah, so only thing, Asri, now we cannot
Yeah,
continue
it's
this.
start.
So yeah, so okay, so I think this is almost done now. You
Yeah,
can see the export has been completed.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is
Okay,
that
Gan.
so this is
Yeah,
this
done.
export that I was talking about, and it had taken 4 records of the DEP2 table, and now this is the name of the file, the dump file that I was talking about, which has got created under U01 software directory. Now this is the completion of the export. Now after the export, what it has to do is it has to take this dump and do the import onto our PDB, which is PDB2. So you can see now the import has started. So the message here you're seeing Oracle instance shutdown is actually on the temporary database. You can see that got shut down, aborted, and then so to clear all those unwanted files as well that got created during the temporary operation. Well, in real world, this operation will not take this much of time. So this is purely due to the slowness of my VM. And so you probably have to bear with me for some time. So it has started the import of the table. And mind you, it is not to DPT2, right? It is that other table we wanted it to be remapped to DPT copy, and you can see the import of scott.dpt copy has been almost completed. So we're just waiting for it to return back to its prompt. So this is, I mean, it's actually a complicated process, but with a single command, we'll be able to do this type of work using RMAN. So, and as I was saying before, I would have touched maybe a certain or very small percentage of RMAN here, but there are a lot to be, studied as well in this topic. So feel free to take this as the, first step of RMAN fundamentals or RMAN operations, and then you can capitalize on this. Okay, so you have to give me a little bit more time until this whole thing completes. So until such time, I'm trying to take a new session. I will just verify with I have the record so that I can show it to you. Let me just stop this screen and then share the other one with you. Sorry, it's the same thing, right? Is show PDBs. So we had it here in the session set container equals. So it got completed now. Scott.dpt underscore copy, right? You can see the whole set of records. And we did not DPT2, right? So DPT2 table is also available with the missing records. Our intention was to recover our table up to the point where we created the restore point. So here you go. You can see all the records have come, and this was what we wanted to achieve. All right. So sorry for taking a bit more time today. I wanted this demonstration to be completed fully. So Asri, I think we can wind up now, right?
Yeah, again, thank you. I think let me stop the recording.
Yeah.
Give me 1 minute, Gan, because I'm not pretty aware about this.
Okay.
Record, yeah, record